Apparently, the defense also thinks that it's a problem that the defendant is actually firing shots at Mr. Efron. A problem for their defense of, apparent defense of skills, because they say actually what he was doing was firing warning shots. Warning shots. We thought it was a prop gun. There's no such thing as a warning shot from a prop gun. So that takes me to the next, really most absurd part of the defense in this case, which is that not only was this a prop gun, but Mr. Efron knew it was a prop gun. They want you to believe Mr. Efron knew that this gun was a prop gun. But at the same time, they also want you to believe, need you to believe, that he pulled the gun in order to intimidate Mr. Efron with the gun that Mr. Efron already knows is a prop gun. It is absolutely absurd. Let's start with the first premise that they want you to believe there, that the defendant is carrying a prop gun in the first place.
All right, here we go. Talk about it.
The testimony through Lou, what the defense wants you to believe is the defendant, he's been stabbed. Not only was he stabbed in this nightclub, 12 was stabbed at the same time. That's a violent thing to have happen to you. Not only that, but he has crazy people breaking into his house. Crazy people stalking him. Also breaking into his house. And when he's faced with that real violence, being stabbed with a real knife, having real people in his house that he doesn't know, what is his rational response to that? Let's carry a fake gun. Let's talk about Lou for a second. This ASAP Lou. ASAP Lou is a very valuable friend to have. ASAP Lou tells you that the defendant singled him out in a crowd because the defendant liked his energy. And little did the defendant know that he was basically recruiting the Swiss Army knife of best friends. Okay? ASAP Lou, not just your personal assistant, but he turns into your tour manager. You need someone to be at your house while the police are searching it on a moment's notice. You got Lou. He's there. But, by the way, let's be clear, Lou, he's totally impartial. He's not financially reliant on the defendant because Lou also has his own DJing business and his own clothing brand, which apparently have nothing to do with his good friend, the famous musician who is also an ambassador to multiple clothing designers. Lou must have done that all on his own. On top of that, Lou, I said he's the Swiss Army knife. One of his functions, he's also the defendant's security consultant. And Lou told you that he sat down with some unnamed, unidentified security expert that did not testify, whose name he couldn't tell you, could give you no information about. And after the real security issues that the defendant was having, being cut with a real knife, he decided the best way that he could protect himself, that Rocky could protect himself, is with a fake gun. So that the next time someone approaches him with a real knife, he can pull out his fake gun. That's going to go one of two ways. That assailant might say, "I didn't know you had a gun," and leave. Or they might attack you with their real knife or their real gun, and your fake gun is completely useless. You have no way of actually defending yourself. And if you're faced with real threats, clearly you want to have something that you can really defend yourself with, not some prop. That security advice, that is not just illogical, it's absurd. okay? And the reason why it's absurd and makes no sense is because it's not real advice. That advice was not given to the defendant, okay? Lou made that up for this case, for his testimony in this trial. It did not happen. But wait, because it gets even more absurd. All right? It's even more absurd because they're saying that Mr. Efron knew, he knew that that gun was fake when the defendant pulled it on him.
Now?
So any even remote possible deterrent effect that that fake gun would have on anyone goes completely out the window when we're talking about Mr. Efron. Because Mr. Efron knows it's fake. I mean, with the defense logic, the defendant could have popped a balloon and it would have had the exact same deterrent effect on Mr. Efron as the fake gun. Did they prove to you? Did they prove to you at all that Mr. Efron knew that gun was fake? Mr. Efron denies it. He says, when I asked him about a prop gun, it took him back. What are you talking? Where does this prop gun come from? Okay? They told you he got that prop gun at a music video shoot in July of 2021. We know the shooting happens November of 2021. Between July and November, did they show you a single instance where the defendant and Mr. Efron are together? A single instance where Mr. Efron could have received that information that this was a fake gun? Does it even make sense that if the defendant's going to carry a fake gun for his security, that he's going to tell everyone around him, hey, it's a fake gun, it's a fake gun? How does that make any sense? It makes absolutely no sense because it's not true. The truth is the defendant did not have a fake gun. He had a real gun. How do we know? Well, the first scene where the defendant pulls the real gun on Mr. Efron, what does he do? How does Mr. Efron respond? How does Ills respond? You don't see the very moment that the gun is first pulled on Mr. Efron. It's not captured on the video, they're just off camera. But what do you see when they come back into the frame? Mr. Efron's backing up. Ills is between them. Ills' entire focus is on the defendant, the man with the gun. This might play audio. Where's Ills looking? Is he focused on Mr. Efron, the provocateur, the one who's provoking this fight, who's trying to hurt his friend Rocky? No. He's got his back to Mr. Efron. He's focused completely on the defendant. What's Mr. Efron doing? Again, they want you to believe Mr. Efron looked at the defendant and said, put that fake-ass gun away. He never said that. What's he doing on the video? He's backing up. There's no video of the second that gun is pulled on him from this scene. But there is that video from the second location. So I want to play that for you, and I'm going to slow it down for you. I will play it at 2 different speeds. You've seen this video over and over and over. You could probably, if you have any artistic skill, you could probably draw it out from memory. But I want to play it slowly. You know who the people are involved in this. What's the defendant doing? He's pulling the gun out, and you see Mr. Efron dive behind Ills. That's how Mr. Efron responds when the gun is pulled on him.
Looks like they're fighting. This is bad. It looks like they're fighting. All I can remember is them fighting.
Now this is really the moment. So I'm going to slow it down even more. We're going to go to 1/4 speed, okay? You can see the defendant already moving back towards Mr. Efron. Mr. Efron is nowhere near Ills. He's lunging towards Mr. Efron, and Mr. Efron is diving out of the way. Now this video, it creates a host of problems for the defense in this case. This is the moment where the defendant is turning around towards Mr. Efron, where he's pulling that gun out, where he's pointing at Mr. Efron. And the gun comes out before Mr. Efron is anywhere near Ills. That completely negates their defense. Negates the reason why he says he had to pull the gun in the first place, to protect Ills. Negates Twelby's testimony that Mr. Efron was punching Ills. Creates a lot of problems for them. You can see the space for yourself between Mr. Efron and Ills. You don't need anyone to tell you that Mr. Efron is not attacking Ills. I guess the best that they could argue is that Mr. Efron was going to attack Ills. I don't, for that to be true, there'd have to be a time machine involved. But the instructions, the jury instructions on that are clear. No, you cannot have a belief that there's going to be future harm. Doesn't matter how imminent it was. Doesn't matter if Mr. Efron was actually saying, I'm going to beat Ills up.
True.
I'm coming after you, Ills. Doesn't work. Belief in future harm is not sufficient. I want to go back to this. You can see the moment where the defendant turns with the gun in his hand, where Mr. Efron is and where Ills is. The second problem that this, so other than negating the defense, right, that 12B wants you to believe Mr. Efron is beating up Ills, that video further causes problems for the defense because nobody on that video is acting like that's a fake gun. They're all reacting to a real gun. Consider it from each of their perspectives. From the defendant's perspective, Mr. Mayers. If he's holding a prop gun and Mr. Efron knows it's a prop gun, that's what they're telling him, right? Why does he have to run towards Mr. Efron? Why does he have to move at all? Why does he have to lunge towards him? When Mr. Efron runs around Ills, why does he have to try to duck and dodge side by side to try to get a line of sight around Ills? If nothing comes out of the barrel, the tip of that gun, because it's a prop gun, not a real gun, there's no need to chase Mr. Efron. There's no need for him to move, period. The gun would make the sound. They're telling you that's what the deterrent is. So why does he move? He moves because it's a real gun, because things do come out of the end of that. And he's trying to get a line of sight on Mr. Efron. Consider it from Mr. Efron's perspective. They want you to believe at the first scene, Mr. Efron looked coolly at the defendant when he pulled that gun out and said, put that fake-ass gun away. So when he pulls it out a second time, a few minutes later, does Mr. Efron look back at him and say, do I have to tell you again? put that fake ass gun away again. No, clearly that's not what he's doing. What he's doing is reacting to, oh my God, someone just pulled a real gun off him. And he's jumping around Ills, trying to put something in between him and the defendant. They're very close. He believes that's a real gun. He knows. His reactions are, that's a real gun. 12E. Let's talk about 12E's perspective. He says, when he testifies, I knew that that was a fake gun. That's, going back, I already knew that before the defendant pulled it out. But what does he do on the video? What does the video show? He's behind a wall. So he's the guy to come in here and tell you, we all knew it was a fake gun. When you see him, when you see his reaction, where is he? He's on the other side of the street, he's hiding. Why does he have to hide if nothing comes out of that gun? He's hiding because he knows, what we all know, it's a real gun. The third problem that that video creates for the defense, it negates this whole idea of defense of others, that the defendant had to do this in order to protect Ills. The defense of others instruction will tell you that it really only applies if the defendant used no more force than was reasonably necessary in the circumstances. The defense in this case needs you to believe that Mr. Efron was not just beating up Ills, but that he was savagely pummeling Ills.
I mean, it kind of looks like it.
Before he's confronted, says Mr. Efron was throwing haymakers at Ills, mercilessly, savagely punching Ills. Why is Mr. Efron doing this? That's never explained. 12E has no explanation for that. In his opening statement, Mr. Takapina told you that Ills' face was pummeled and that they were going to bring in pictures to show you just how damaged Ills was. Well, obviously that did not pan out. And obviously 12E was not expecting to be confronted with pictures or videos of Ills' face the day after this happened, showing not a single scratch on his face. Nothing. If what 12E was describing to you had actually happened, these savage blows landed on Ills' face, if that had actually happened, they would have brought in photos of Ills' bloody, bruised face, black eyes, busted lip, whatever it was, cut on his cheek. They didn't bring in any of that because it didn't happen. One step further, we actually brought in pictures of him to show there's nothing there. It absolutely did not happen.